I come across this article in 1957 Architectural Forum, June 1957, and it typifies so much the difference between Islam and the West. So much so that I wanted to share it with you. The president is saying that Islam has contributed so much to America. And that's a ridiculous statement. In this article I'm going to read to show you how different the West is from Islam and why they're so different. And one has to do with literacy and accuracy. Muhammad was illiterate, pretty much an illiterate thug. And I don't see why we have to respect a false prophet, not just a false prophet, but one who was an illiterate thug at that. This here will make my point exactly. The article reads, maybe there's a parable in this or something. At any rate, in the course of raising the new Islamic Center in Washington, D.C., a gleaming Moorish-style building patterned somewhat after the Alhambra to house a library, museum, lecture hall, and the world's first air-conditioned mosque for the convenience of some 500 Muslims in the various diplomatic legations, a curious conflict arose between science and religion. The building was designed in the Ministry of Waqfs in Cairo, Egypt, and a crucial point in the design was to face the mosque building on its plot in a true easterly direction toward Mecca to satisfy the strict tenets of Muslim worship. When the plans were adapted to Potomac construction by a firm of Washington architects and engineers, the engineers, getting into the spirit of the work, drew a precise bead on Mecca and pointed the mosque 56 degrees 33 minutes and 15 seconds east of true north. A delegation of Muslims checking the placement of the rising structure with pocket compasses nearly went through the roof when they discovered that the building's orientation was slewed so far off the magnetic east. In the ensuing hubbub, in which Islamic authorities seriously considered tearing down the building and starting all over again, it took the combined forces of the National Geographic Society and the engineers to prove that the mosque was built pointing directly at Mecca. For years, ignoring the curvature of the earth, Washington's Muslims had been bent in praying with their heads pointed in the general direction of Soviet Russia, Moscow. Obviously, there are some deep political and philosophical implications here with which we do not feel competent to deal, beyond observing that it is always dangerous and growing increasingly more so to ignore the technical facts. And we can just leave it at that. You can see exactly what I'm talking about here. Perfect situation for, I would say, as long as Muslims been in presence in Washington, D.C., maybe 100, 150 years, they've been praying towards Moscow. and the thing is, they get angry about it, and they're ready to tear the building down because they're so ignorant. And I don't see why we have to accept the ignorance. And by the way, the ignorance is permanent in the Quran. Why are we required to respect that kind of ignorance? I don't understand it. But I would like to put a sign on the Statue of Liberty that says, no Muslims, because we don't need Muslims bringing their ignorance into our country. We don't need them bringing their attitudes towards freedom or lack of freedom into our country. They can need to assimilate, and the way they do that is by denouncing Islam or just not coming here. I think that's the healthy thing, and that's what the Western Europeans need to do as well. Will they have the courage to do that? I doubt it. And you know, there's also the aspect that God is using Islam to punish the West because the West has turned its back on the true God. So I don't want to be too forceful about this. But theoretically, if the West values its freedom, they should put up no Muslim signs in front of all their immigration offices. And that would solve a great deal of our conflicts with Islam.